This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
While it's holiday season here, are there any customs or traditions that seem strange to you?
In the evening when they roll out the music and the elderly Chinese are doing the dancing.
Right.
And you know
we
what?
call them the square dance.
The square dance, and even if it's -5, it's been freezing.
There is a fourth floor on that building. It's just
Right.
called floor number 5.
The nuances of face, the different kinds of face that you can give somebody, directly. I praise you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
新年快乐.
Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year, Spring Festival. Different words for the same time, a time of celebration here in China. And also it's a time to bring into focus a lot of elements of Chinese culture that could be strange or confusing if you haven't grown up here. So today we're going to have an informal conversation about the differences and similarities and maybe helping explain a little bit of China to the rest of the world. And I'm happy to be joined around the table by Yair Sheket, an Israeli executive in the high-tech field. Welcome. Yes. And Nicholas Holt, a Briton who's head of research for the property company Knight Frank in Asia. It's
Hello.
great to have you with us.
Thank you.
And of course, Einar Tangen, a Beijing-based writer and columnist.
Thank you.
This is Dialogue. That's our topic. I'm Wang Mengmang. So welcome to Dialogue, gentlemen. Happy Chinese New Year.
Happy Chinese New Year.
Same to you.
Thank you. While it's holiday season here, are there any customs or traditions that seem strange to you? I know Yair have been here for 6 years,
almost.
And for Nick, it's
Just 6 months, so this is all new to me. I'm here 6 months, these guys have been here for a number of years. So yeah, everything is very new, very, very interesting, very surprising.
Right. And Einar, you've been here 12 years.
And it's still new and very interesting.
And I'm native, so it's great that we can sit here and talk about the Chinese culture here. So which part of the Chinese New Year do you find most confusing to you as a newcomer? Oh no, Nick is the newcomer, sorry.
Well, I guess a lot of elements of the culture around the whole Lunar New Year is still, I suppose, a surprise. I mean, we did the whole Hongbao thing the other day, where the boss gave out the Hongbaos to everybody in the company.
Like
and I saw
in red envelopes?
the red envelopes, yeah, and then that was
not on the app application.
Well, we know he did it twice. He did the app, the WeChat, which was very interesting, and then we did the physical envelope, and we did that over a sort of a Chinese banquet. And he gave out the envelopes, and it was really interesting to see how all of my Chinese colleagues responded to all of that.
Do you understand the symbolism of Hongbao?
No, and I'm hoping you can perhaps explain it to me.
Well, back in ancient times, the elderly would, thread the coins using a red string to give to the younger generation to ward off evil spirits, to keep them safe, and to keep them from disease or even death. And today we just put money, cash into the red envelopes. And of course, the red always means good luck here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I
What
never thought
about
about
you,
that.
Yair?
I know that the Hongbao itself, the amount you give, the number itself has some symbolic meaning. For example, you would give a number with 8 or 6, but you would not give with the number 4. From what I understood and what I saw, number 4 is not so welcome in China.
Yeah.
You see many high rises without the floor 4.
4 or 14.
4, 14, 13 sometimes.
18 too. Yeah.
So from a foreigner perspective, that sounds kind of strange, because there is a fourth floor on that building. It's just
Right.
called floor
5.
number 5.
And you've been here for so long, are there things that still puzzle you?
Yes, of course. But I mean, to talk about why is it unpopular is because when you pronounce 4, so it's very similar to death, the word for death in China. So therefore, you don't want to wish somebody death. So it's this kind of wordplay, which was one of the things that I had to kind of come to grips with. So much of Chinese humor is about wordplay and things that sound alike. But for me, over time, the most interesting part is the idea of face, how you give face, how you receive face. You always bring a present when you go to somebody's house. They always bring one to you. There's traditional tea and fruit
Like
that it's
the
an
one
offering. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It wouldn't be good form unless you were actually doing those things. So I think this is one of the hardest areas for people to understand. It's the nuances of face, the different kinds of face that you can give somebody. Directly, I praise you, or somebody will talk about the things that you've done, and these are considered very differently. Or they'll talk about somebody has praised you, and you're passing on that praise.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
but this is sometimes difficult for Westerners, because they say, well, why are they talking about all this stuff? Why are they doing all this kind of praising? But it's very, very important to kind of symbolize the depth of friendship and respect that goes along with these kinds of events.
Since you mentioned face, Einar, there are things, even though I'm a native here, there are things that still I would feel embarrassed about. For example, people would always fight for bills, and it's almost become an art to learn when to grab a bill, when to let it go, and to make sure that the person that you're eating with do not sneak away just to pay for the bills. This is like cultural shock 101 here.
I have a very simple cure for this. All right, I arrange with the restaurant that it's prepaid. So when they start sneaking off to do it, they come back sheepishly because it's already been paid for.
You want the
They will
bottle
feel
before it
it's a cheap
starts.
failure.
Now, there's also the drinking culture. All right, when somebody pours you tea, you go like this because of that old
Tap on the table.
the
to
tap on the
express-
table.
to express
And
gratitude,
it's a
yeah.
great story. You should say the emperor wanted to go out amongst the people. He wanted to see his people, so he went out, and he tried to instruct everybody, don't let on that I'm the emperor. But of course, his chief minister was there, and he was acting as a tea pourer. The emperor was, so he was pouring tea. So he can't bow down to him. So instead, he went like this to symbolize he was getting down on his knees before his emperor.
Yes.
So that's good etiquette. Just like drinking, I had to learn that I always put my cup, to show respect,
Should
I
we
put
have a
my cup
toast?
under. I put my
Under.
Oh yes, of
To
course,
show
yeah.
respect to the other person.
Yeah, but
Yes.
the thing I don't
Always
like.
go lower.
Always go lower.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
how low are you going to go?
well, no, but it becomes kind of ridiculous because
Yeah.
people will, literally stand there and then they'll get
Yeah.
down to the floor and they'll put
Yeah.
the cup on the floor to show that. I don't think you need
But
to
if,
do
if
that.
somebody
Here, I'll show you a trick.
But if you deemed yourself of an equivalent
you
level,
don't.
you would always. But then
No. Equivalent is you go sideways,
Okay.
or at least that's
Now,
generally.
This is the time
no?
we could try the tap to say thank you.
The tap.
Hmm.
Yes, we have it.
2 fingers.
2 fingers.
Two fingers, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very simple. What are the other
But
customs that happen?
I just
Yeah,
want to,
sure.
this is a wonderful trick that I've developed. And it's really what it comes down to is when somebody tries to go, like, I just put my hand on their glass and then just tap
Yeah, they
under the
couldn't go
bottom.
lower.
They cannot go lower. And so it kind of nullifies this thing. Because it seems a little weird when I see Westerners, like trying to put their cup on the floor to show. You're making too much of a scene. And I think that's probably not the best way to do it. Subtlety, I think, is important.
Another subtle way to save face has to do with how you deal with compliments. In China, we would be very modest when people give you compliments, and it'd be considered arrogant to just say thank you in response to a compliment. For example, if you say that your dress is very beautiful today, I would say,
Nolly, nolly.
Nolly, nolly, yeah.
Different kinds of expressions, yes. You would deflect on the compliment, or you would pretend that you're surprised, or you would return the compliment. Yeah.
But truthfully, I don't think that is that different from the West. Only Trump, I'm sorry, we can't talk politics, but only certain people are very, let us say, happy to receive a compliment and not return it. In polite society, I think, I can speak for, I've lived in England and I have not been to Israel yet, but I think most people will just return the compliment as a way of saying thank you, and that's polite. This is what I think we share.
What are the other things that we were talking about? Chinese New Year, and then there's also Mid-Autumn Festival, when people eat moon cakes.
Yes.
Have you tried?
I've tried mooncakes, yeah, delicious, fantastic, yeah. But again, I don't know the history behind the mooncake. I'm not sure exactly where they come from, but I know there was boxes of mooncakes being passed around. Clients as well were giving us boxes of mooncakes, and so yeah, I put a bit of weight on around the Mid-Autumn Festival. Yeah.
Well, the celebration dates back to 3,000 years ago when the emperor worshipped the moon to pray for good harvest. And now it's developed that people will be gathering together, especially families will be sitting together, eating moon cakes, and appreciate the beauty of the moon. That's how it is today.
That's how it is today, but I mean, in the recent, the crackdown against things, I mean, the irony was that you
austerity measures really taking them.
A few years ago, you would receive a mooncake, 6, 8 mooncakes in a box.
Fancy boxes.
And the box would be worth maybe thousands of dollars, and then the mooncakes might cost about 5 cents a piece. Okay, but this was this idea of showing respect. I give you something. It's the box really that kind of counts, and that's one of the things that I always find fascinating about China is that so much of it is put in terms of the color, the symbolism of the color, the lavishness of the outside is actually more important than sometimes what's inside it.
Yeah,
why is that?
I think, again, it has to do with the face. Showing people, like, from the outside, this is really beautiful, and you know that I'm trying to express my respect or gratitude or something, and then, no one really enjoys eating mooncake, so what's inside doesn't matter.
I like the mooncake. I like the mooncake. Have I got strange taste?
You're British. What do you know?
Stiff upper lip. I just ate it.
The problem with the pastry is that it's so rich and so thick in flavor sometimes, and you just think of all the calories that you put on.
It's hard to eat many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slim ladies like yourself. We like to enjoy life. No, but actually, the funny thing was, originally I thought that the mooncakes only came with the egg inside, and it was very, very heavy, sometimes salty.
Cantonese style.
Cantonese style. But if you go in other places, they have incredible ones with figs and nuts and things like that. So I think it really depends on the region. And so often, like we're talking about China as if it's one China in the sense of, one culture, and it isn't. You go all over China and everything.
That's probably what's hit me the most in 6 months, is how diverse China is. Dongbei to Guangdong to Xinjiang, where I was in December. It's so different. So much variety, and everybody's so proud of also their local food, their local culture, their local dialects perhaps. That's what I think is so fascinating about China, is the differences that you see across the whole geography.
Tell us about your experience in Dongbei. What happened there? Did you have some baijiu?
So
Chinese alcohol?
I've drunk baijiu up there, but I think one of the most interesting trips was I went home to the UK on the train back in December. So from Beijing all the way back to the UK, all the way through China into Xinjiang, Western China, and that was fascinating. One thing which was a little confusing is the fact that time zones are the same. So the sun didn't come up till 10 in the morning. I thought, what's happening here? And then the sun came up at 10. But you almost feel like you're in a different country out there, and also passing through places like Xi'an on the way, feeling the history in some of these old capitals. It was just a phenomenal trip. But 6 months, I mean, I think you could spend 60 years and still not discover all of China. It's so big and diverse.
What about you, Yi? You've been here 6 years. What still
found
of you?
I found China to be extremely rich, as Nick mentioned, but I do see some similarities between many places. And one of the things that struck me that's very interesting is not about history, but about the future, actually. It's about technology and adoption of new technologies in China. And I see the adoption rates here are phenomenal compared to other countries. Overnight, Didi Dacha, Didi Kuaidi, I forgot their name back then. Overnight, you couldn't hail a taxi the regular way. You couldn't stop a taxi on the side of the road because all of them were already ordered by the app.
Stuck on the road?
Exactly.
By not using the app?
Yes. And then it took me 2 or 3 days until a friend of mine taught me how to use the app. Until then, I didn't have any other method of finding a taxi, and it happened overnight. The same thing with the electronic payments. and with ride sharing, bikes, new bike sharing applications you see.
Yeah.
So the adoption is phenomenally fast and in large scale.
You could actually live a life without your wallet here in Beijing.
Now it's a reality, whereas in other places it's going there, but it's step by step. In China, China leapfrogs many industries and many fields. It goes from one state to extreme future.
Well, and part of that, I think, is the fact that it's a different governmental system, a strong centralized system. For instance, I've always said that China will probably be the first country in the world to have a city which has driverless cars. And the reason is because China creates cities. So if you design the city from day one to be a driverless car city, and you say, look, there's going to be no driven cars here, it's all driverless, they can do that.
Yeah.
You know, think about it. In the West, you know, you're in real estate. Cities are existing entities that are generally in bad locations because they're in swamps or near rivers or something, and they're managed. All right, you try to get the most out of them. But in China, you actually will create a city at a strategic point, and then try to make it into an economic engine that really works. And the number of cities in China that have been created over these last 35 years, it's phenomenal. We're talking about thousands of cities.
You could simply characterize a city. All right, so gentlemen, let's take a short break and we're going to continue our discussion in just a moment. You're watching Dialogue, stay with us. Celebrate the Chinese New Year with CGTN as we broadcast the world's biggest television event with musical songs, colorful dance routines, cultural commentary, and more. Join us for live coverage of the 2017 Spring Festival Gala here on CGTN. Welcome back to Dialogue. Now let's continue our discussion on Chinese culture that still seems strange or even confusing to you.
Feeling in China is huge.
It's subtle.
It's subtle, but I mean, everyone puts a lot of things in it. My wife will wear a red color, and she says this is very powerful. This will let everybody know that I'm very happy. No, just in certain occasions. She'll choose the color of her dress based on the occasion itself. And she's trying to express something.
But is that just a feminine thing in general?
No, because you know it's like the Olympic, the start of the Olympics. There was so much symbolism that was there. So if you're Chinese, you're just seeing all of these powerful symbols there. In the West, it just looked interesting, very nice. But it's like you don't get any of the or much of the symbolism itself. And I think this is something that you can only get if you're willing to study and understand and keep an open mind, given that cultures, the people are the same, but our cultures and habits are a little different.
And the colors have this whole different set of systems, different terms and different, it's very interesting when it comes to colors. It really carries a lot of meaning. Yeah.
But I mean, how do you explain this to somebody who has been here 6 months or 2 weeks or things? It's very, very difficult because it can be very subtle, as you said. There's a whole system, but no one sits down with you and say, listen, don't give white flowers to anybody. Just like don't give scissors or a clock to a friend because it can symbolize, you're running out of time and the knife will cut you.
We don't use scissors in holiday season. It's a taboo kind of thing.
To use scissors,
and you don't get a haircut during the holiday season. You could do it before or after.
One of the lovely things that I've seen here in Beijing is when you see a public space, perhaps next to a metro station or something, and in the evening when they roll out the music and the elderly Chinese are doing the dancing.
Right.
And you know
we
what?
call them the square dance.
The square dance, and even if it's -5, it's been freezing, and they're still out there doing it. And I thought that's fantastic.
They have a national competition.
National competition. And this is everywhere in China.
And
This is done, the square dancing, yeah.
And they get so loud sometimes, and the people living around them would have complaints all the time.
It's a great way of keeping fit, I guess.
Well, yeah, but it also expresses this reality about you know, the difference in the, I mean, the economics has just vaulted way ahead. But in terms of social life, you know, moving from a village where you knew everybody knew you, to a city where you don't know people, I mean, there is a lack of community. And I think this is the strongest bond in things. I don't think they get out there because, yes, you can get exercise. You could also just take a walk, right, quite frankly.
That's how you get connected with
yes,
people.
and this is very important. I've met people and they say, oh, my dancing group, and this is really the center of their social existence. But
Part
I
of their
think,
life.
and this is why I think people should be a little bit more understanding. I mean, this is a very important part of living in cities. You know, we move to cities to have better lives, but sometimes you can be alone in the midst of many people in a crowd. So you have to allow and be.
But also, I mean, we've just got, I mean, we're going through a period of history where this is the biggest wave of urbanization in any country, in any time ever, that we've just seen in China. You know, hundreds of millions of people moving to cities. So yeah, I mean, I guess the change in China over the last 30 years is just pretty unprecedented. And you know, we still got some way to go. We're at 50% urbanization now. We're just over 50%.
Just over 50%.
Just over 50%. So we've got a long way to go. So I guess it's going to be very interesting to see how you know, urban culture does develop over the coming years.
Let's also talk about this home ownership thing. Why do Chinese could only feel secure when they own a home?
Because you
I'm
want to
just
get
tossing
married.
this question
Yeah.
to you just to see if you understand
Well,
it.
it's also the path to middle class. I mean, quite frankly, with the housing values that have increased so much, I think there's a maybe perhaps misplaced confidence that the price will go up forever, and that's not the way it works. It goes up over time, but perhaps not at the same percentage as it's been coming up lately. It's also very difficult because the median income and the median house price do not match up. And generally that signals an imbalance in the market, and it has consequences down the line.
I think we've not been through numerous cycles. Many people in the West, we've been through booms and busts in our housing markets. And whereas in China, I guess, because the market was only sort of privatized, I guess, in the early 90s, and it's really, I mean, apart from a couple of little bumps, it's really just been going up. So there's a belief that this will keep going. You know, that you can't fail to invest in property.
Sorry to jump in. Another consideration is that a lot of the social security system, a lot of the elements of the social security system has to do with the household registration system, the hukou.
Hukou, yeah.
And without a permanent home, you will not have access to that system, to all the social security. And rented homes cannot provide you a permanent address.
You know, the people who built China were the people who don't currently have homes. They're all the migrant workers who, you know, worked as, you know, they built the foundations, put up the steel, they've done all of these things. They made tremendous sacrifices. On the other hand, I think the government is very concerned about this, and they've been pushing a lot of social issues. I mean, one of the biggest changes I noticed from being here in 1999 was all the migrant workers used to be bused somewhere outside of town where they were literally living in tents, even in the winter time. And it was very, very basic. Now I notice that they do put up basic but solid temporary housing for the workers that are actually quite near the workplace.
Yeah.
So I think there have been changes. There's still probably more to come. But this issue of not being able to have a hukou, to receive government benefits, even though you're paying taxes, in the place that you're living as opposed to some place that you're registered. That probably is something that has to change, and the government says that it will.
And what's really affecting people is that a girl would not even consider getting married if a guy doesn't own a home.
I was going to say that there's also a very lighter element to all this discussion, which is the fact that you want to get married. As a man, you want to get married. It is kind of expected of you to have a house, a job, a car, much more than it is in Israel, for example. In Israel, you can find people with without the ability to buy a house, and they have excellent wives, and they have excellent relationships. So in China, I think that it's more traditional. You're expected currently to be able to accommodate and to have a house and a car and so on.
Is that an
Are you feeling the pressure?
absolute true? I was going to say, maybe I should have to buy a place. I think I've got to pay a year's worth of taxes before I can. Yeah.
You might as well paint a big red target on yourself and say, marry me, please.
So, but there's an absolute prerequisite. If you don't have a house, it's very difficult to find
even if the girl says yes, your future in-laws will
say
probably,
we'll expect.
Yeah.
But the number of what they call naked marriages, where neither side is bringing a house to the wedding, has gone up every year for the last 5 or 6 years. So you do seeing that. And then the fact is, it's very difficult. The average pay, as I said, the median income is nowhere near what it would take to do it. But you do have that drain down effect. You have, 4 grandparents, 2 parents, 1 kid. They get married, and now you have 8 grandparents, 4 parents, 2 kids, and a great-great-grandchild. So all the money can kind of funnel down, and that's been cushioning a lot of, I think, the social anxiety, because you have the families getting together and saying, okay, we got to do this all together because of the grandchild. But I do think it's enormous pressure, and I talk to a lot of young people, and they just say, it's unfair. I just feel so much pressure to succeed because my parents sacrificed to educate me, and they want me to marry well, and they want me to be secure. They also want me to take care of them and my grandparents. There's a kind of an opposite reaction to a lot of this stuff, where it's very difficult for the new generations.
I guess affordability around the world in the big cities is an issue, isn't it? For a lot of the younger millennials, 25-year-olds, whereas people could get on the property ladder very easily 30, 40 years ago in the West, now it's a lot more difficult. And I guess affordability would be one of the things going forward.
Given the ever-increasing housing prices here in Beijing, it is
Exactly,
hard for
Well,
them.
there might be a change in that. I mean, you really, in China, you really don't have the kind of property taxes that you pay on an annual basis in other parts of the world, which are part of the way the local government finances itself. The government is looking to wean off the local governments from these land leases there. So a property tax in lieu
An
of
annuity style income coming in every year.
Yes, exactly. It's a steady income stream that continues on forever. But the changeover now of properties that are coming due. There's like a 30, 40 years for industrial, there's 50 years for commercial, 70 years for residential, but some of these are coming up for renewal, and as they do so, this might be the opportunity for the government to say, okay, we're going to impose, rather than make you pay and borrow money to do this, we're going to impose a land tax.
Well, there's so much more to be discussed about Chinese culture, but it's holiday season. We shouldn't be taking too much of our time sitting here, maybe reunion with families. So let's just wrap it up here. Thank you so much, and I hope our discussion helped every one of us here better understand the Chinese culture.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
新年快乐.
新年快乐. And now on that note, we come to this edition of Dialogue. I'm Wang Mengmang. Thanks for watching. See you next time.